Okay.
And now push the stop. Remember, push record button again.
Okay.
And now push the stop. Remember, push record button again.
We're recording.
Mr. Craggett, as you know, my name is James Hardiman. I'm co-authoring a book on the desegregation of the Cleveland Public Schools, and you have agreed to respond to some questions. You're going to be the first person that we interview. We anticipate conducting approximately 50 interviews. Hopefully, this will not take longer than an hour. But we have several questions that we want to ask you, all pertaining to your experience with the Cleveland Public Schools. First of all, what is your full name?
Charles Edward Craggett, Sr.
Okay, do you go by Charles, Charlie?
Charles.
Charles.
Yeah.
Okay, Charles. I'll use that when I pose the questions to you. First of all, tell me about your education. By that I mean, where did you attend elementary school, junior high school, and high school?
Well, I started at Way Park Elementary School, and then from there I went to Daniel E. Morgan, then back to Way Park. Do you need the grades that I was in?
If you have it, sure.
Yeah, I went to Way Park from the kindergarten through the second grade. Then the third grade I was at Daniel E. Morgan, then got sent back to Way Park from the fourth and the fifth grade, then went to John Raper for the sixth grade. Then after elementary school, I went to Addison for junior high school for the 3 years. Then after I left Addison, I went to Lutheran East High School for a year. Then I came back to East High School for my 11th and 12th grade.
How is it that you happen to go to Lutheran East High School?
My mom and dad wanted to send me there.
In anticipation of receiving a better education?
Yeah.
Okay. Did they give up on Lutheran East? What was the reason they transferred you back to East High?
I really didn't want to go. I just got tired of getting up early in the morning and making that bus trip out there and getting back after the sun went down. I said, you know, I could get this same education at the public school here, and they can save their money.
And where did you live when you were in high school?
On East 84th Street, 1564 East 84th, between Linwood and Way Park.
Okay, that was within walking distance of East High School, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you decided it was better to walk to East High School than take a few buses to get to Lutheran East?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, after you graduated from high school, did you have any military?
Yeah,
you joined the military?
Joined the Air Force.
Okay, and how long were you a member of the United States Air Force?
24 years.
Okay, did you retire?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any other post-high school education or college experience?
Yeah, throughout my military career, I was taking courses, places I was stationed at. Then after I retired, I got into Tri-C and completed the radiography program and got my associates, and I've been an X-ray tech since then.
Oh, are you currently employed?
Yes.
By whom?
It's called Portable Radiology Services. We go to nursing homes and take X-rays of patients there. Plus, we have a contract with the county jail.
I see. And how long have you been doing that?
About 6 years now.
Okay. All right. Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have one brother, and my sister is deceased.
And what's your brother's name?
George Craggett.
And your sister's name?
Sandra Craggett.
Did they both attend the Cleveland Public Schools?
Yes.
Okay. East High School?
Yes.
Okay. And I know your brother graduated in 1974. When did your sister graduate, if you recall?
She would have graduated in 67.
Okay. Interesting. My brother graduated from East High in 67.
Did he?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have any children?
Yes, I have two sons.
And how old are your sons?
22 and 18.
Okay. Do they attend Cleveland schools?
Yes.
Okay. What schools did they attend?
They went to Riverside Elementary School and left there and went to My oldest son went to Benedictine for a little while, but he played around, so he ended up coming back and graduating from John Marshall. And my youngest son just graduated. He went to Riverside also, and he ended up graduating from, oh God, can't even think of the name of the school. That's
East side or west side?
No, it was downtown. It was an alternative school.
I see.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, he kept getting in trouble. But he did get his high school diploma from there. Now he's going to Tri-C. And my oldest son, he just graduated from Tri-C, and he just started at Cleveland State this past semester.
Okay.
Matter of fact, him and his mother graduated together at Tri-C this past December.
That's great.
Yeah.
Is she going to Cleveland State also?
No.
Okay. But he's going to Cleveland State in pursuit of a bachelor's degree?
Yes.
Okay. Based on all of that, how do you feel about education, particularly education in the Cleveland school system?
Well, my feeling about education is it starts at home and it ends at home. And, it's there for you. I feel it's important, but, you have to want it. And, I preach to my kids all the time, just because the teacher says you don't have any homework doesn't mean you don't have any homework, okay? If you're not getting straight A's, then you got homework. So, you all through life is education. When you're out on the streets, you learn something. And that's very important, and how you use it to get through life.
So it does not begin and end at the schoolhouse door?
No.
Okay. Now, you said you went to Wade Park, Daniel E. Morgan, and eventually Addison and East High School. Do you recall the racial composition of Wade Park when you were there?
Yeah, it's pretty much black.
And
I don't think it wasn't a segregation thing. That's who lived in the neighborhood. It seemed like on our street, we had some whites on our street, but it just was like it was an exodus, and they were just exiting and leaving. So if I was to guess, I'd say about 90% of the school was black.
This was at Wade Park?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you went to Daniel E. Morgan, you said?
Same, yeah.
It was about the same, 90% or better?
Yeah.
Okay. You came back to Wade Park, I believe you said?
Correct.
Had the racial composition changed in any respect during the period you were gone and came back?
I'd say probably got more blacker.
Okay. What percentage would you guess?
Maybe close to between 95 and 100%.
Okay. So eventually you graduated from Wade Park and went to Addison Junior High School?
Yes.
Which no longer exists, of course.
Correct.
What was the racial composition of Addison when you were there?
I'd say that was about 99% black also.
Okay. And you would have gone to East High probably in 1966?
67.
67?
Yeah, because I went to
Lutheran East.
Lutheran
You did
East
say that.
for a year.
That's correct.
Correct.
What was the racial composition of Lutheran East High School?
It was, let's see, at that time, it was 325 people in the students in the school when I went, and 26 were black.
So the great majority of the students at Lutheran East were white?
Yeah.
Okay, or at least non-black.
Correct.
And you said you went there for a year.
Yeah.
And then you went to East High, I assume, between 68 to 69.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
What was the racial composition of East High when you were there?
Again, about between 95 and 100% black.
Okay. Would you consider those schools that were 90% or more black or African American segregated?
Well, I don't understand what you mean by segregated. To me, segregation means that you weren't allowed to do something because of your color. It was just opportunity that it was black. That's who lived in the neighborhood were black. So
if I understand you correctly, you feel that the racial composition of the neighborhood created the racial composition of the schools.
correct.
And if the racial composition of Wade Park was overwhelmingly black, then, I'm sorry, if the racial composition of the Wade Park neighborhood was overwhelmingly black, the school was a reflection of the neighborhood.
Correct.
Okay. And that would have been the case with Daniel E. Morgan,
Yes.
Addison Junior High School, and
Yes.
East High School. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. When I use the word race, when I use the word segregation, I'm referring to racial segregation. Was there any other kind of segregation that you were aware of?
No.
Okay. How did you attend, during the time that you were in school, whether it was Wade Park, Daniel E. Morgan, Wade Park again, Addison, how did you spend your time outside of school? What type of activities did you engage in?
Baseball, football.
Were you any good?
I was okay. Let's say I could hold my own on the street.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you play for East High?
Yeah, and no, I didn't play for East High. No,
Okay.
I played at Lutheran East, junior varsity.
Okay. Is there a reason you didn't play when you got back to East High?
I didn't think I was good enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I had some good players.
Okay.
So I support the team, but I play in gym,
Okay.
but no, not on the team.
Any other activities, extracurricular or otherwise, that you participated in other than football and baseball?
No, none that come to mind.
Okay. Band, choir, anything of that sort?
Oh, I was in the band well, I took band as one of my courses. I wasn't actually in the band itself. Music, I guess.
What instrument did you play?
The drums.
Okay. Okay. So when you were growing up, you were probably a normal child. You participated in athletics. You took some had some musical training, and basically enjoyed yourself. Is that a reasonable statement to say?
Yeah.
Do you have any significant memories about your school years, whether it was at Wade Park, Daniel E. Morgan, Lutheran East High, Addison? Any memories that stand out in your mind?
No, not really. No, I just got my education there, made friends, and
Any of those friends still friends today?
not since then. You know, maybe some high school friends, but no, I've lost contact with people. Basically, I lost contact when I left here and was gone to the military.
To join the Air Force?
Yeah,
And what year did you join the Air Force?
in 1970.
Okay, right after high school?
Yes,
Okay. And when were you discharged from the military?
in 1994.
Okay. So that was 24 years.
Yes.
Okay. Any experiences that come to mind from your time in the military as it pertains to civil rights?
No, you know, things were starting to get better in the Air Force just after I got in. Just preceding me where they were having riots, and they knew things were going to need to change, and they were making these change, and it was like minorities weren't afforded to move up in the promotion system as the white counterparts. And so they had to devise a system that, seemed to be equal or fair to everybody. Whereas I think it was more subjective because you had people picking who was going to be promoted, where then they devised a testing system. And so now, blacks were able to get ahead in the military then.
So when you started in 1970, if I understand what you're saying correctly, there was a certain amount of discrimination
Yes.
that existed in the Air Force.
Yes.
But during the course of your 24 years, things got better, and they did devise some programs to eliminate the discriminatory treatment
Right.
that blacks were subjected to. Did you experience any actual personal discrimination while in the military?
Well, nothing that I can prove. I mean, and the military did have a EOT, Equal Opportunity Department, which part racial discrimination was part of their scope of, making sure this doesn't go on. But you have your superiors over you, and I mean, they make decisions that, maybe I don't agree with, but I can't prove that it was, their decisions were racial or not. So it's like, playing a game. So
I don't understand. Did you feel it was racial but couldn't prove it? Is that what you're saying?
I wonder, was it racial? I don't know. But they're in charge, so you had to just go along with it, unless you want to fight it or, go to jail for disobeying a direct order or orders given by superiors. So just played the game.
So there were things,
I get in that position, then I can make decisions like that.
So there were things that you considered to be unfair, but you did not consider them to be necessarily racial.
Yeah.
Or if they were racial, you couldn't prove it was racial.
Correct.
Is that the long and the short of it?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of blacks in Vietnam?
Yes.
Okay, what is that?
Well, what do you mean, the black soldiers in Vietnam?
Yes. Any experiences that you were aware of? Because in 1970, we were still involved in Vietnam, is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Things that I heard was like the way they would, and this was more in the Army or Marines, the way they sent out people on patrols. I heard, stories that they were racially made up patrols. Dangerous stuff, life-threatening, probably the black person's going to get sent out. But then I heard, too, that the Vietnamese weren't so much attacking the blacks as they were the whites, so the kind of they would change the racial makeup of the patrols to include both, so, because too many white people were getting killed over there.
Now, did you actually go to Vietnam?
Yeah, I went over there. I was just over there, temporary duty.
For how long?
For a couple months.
Okay. And when did Vietnam end, or our involvement in Vietnam?
72.
In 72?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were there a few months, but you maintained your involvement with the military until 1994.
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever stay in contact with what was going on in Cleveland while you were in the military?
Other than writing my family, communicating with my family, that was about it. I'd come home on leave, vacations.
How old are you now?
62.
You're 62?
Yeah.
Do you recall much about the civil rights movement, particularly the demonstrations, the March on Washington, those types of things? You would have still been in school when much of that was going on. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, I know the March on Washington, we were vacationing because we were in Niagara Falls, because I remember my mom mentioning that she went to that instead of us going to Niagara Falls. Yeah.
And your mother's name was what?
Daisy Craggett.
Now, was Daisy Craggett, your mother, something of an activist during the 1960s?
Yes.
Describe what your mother did that made you believe she was an activist.
Well, she was in the neighborhood, when injustices, incidents happened, she would always be out there trying to make sure that people were treated fairly. You know, if somebody went to jail, you know, she would be over there at the jail making sure, you know, their rights weren't being violated when they were in the jail.
What about your father? Was he much of an activist also?
No, he was a minister at the church. My mother was the pretty much the activist one. Yeah. And then he was worked at the post office also.
Okay, what church did he minister?
At Crawford Road Christian Church. First it was Cedar Christian Church at 83rd and Quincy. And then the church bought a building over on Crawford Road and then became Crawford Road Christian Church. He was the assistant minister.
Do you have any recollection, other than the March on Washington, of any other civil rights activities? The demonstrations of people that went on bus rides into the South, voting issues, anything of that sort?
Freedom Riders. I mean, things I've heard about. I never participated in them.
Okay. You would have been in high school and then thereafter in the military when much of this was going on,
yeah.
Right? Do you have any knowledge of the case known as Brown versus the Board of Education?
And about segregation.
It was about segregated schools.
About the schools being equal.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was about.
Yeah.
The lead case came out of Topeka, Kansas. Does that ring a bell or anything
Yeah.
with you? Were you aware of it when it happened? You would have been just a small child. It happened in 1954.
No, I wasn't. I was 54. I was 3 years old.
Okay. How did you learn of Brown versus the Board of Education?
Through education. I don't even remember if we were taught this in school. Just picking up books and reading about it.
So if you were 3 in 1954, do you have any recollection of when President Kennedy was shot?
It's 62, was it? 62?
Actually, it was 63.
63.
But do you have any recollection? Most people...
I was in the 7th grade in our science class when it came over the PA speaker that he had been assassinated, and because I remember the science teacher started crying.
That would have been at Addison?
Yes.
Okay. Any other recollections? Did you watch it on television or anything of that sort?
Watched too when Jack Ruby killed what was the guy, Lee Harvey Oswald? Yeah, yes. When he killed him.
Yeah, a lot of people.
It was a Sunday afternoon. We were just getting ready to leave to go to we came home from church and we're just getting ready to leave to go to the Forum cafeteria downtown.
On 9th Street?
Yeah. And just happened to be watching TV there for a second, and you know, they said they were taking out Lee Harvey Oswald, escorting him out of the jail, and saw this guy come up and put a gun in his stomach and pull the trigger.
Now, did that have any effect on you as a young child in 7th grade?
I just said, wow. You know, it was just fascinating. Okay, it didn't bother me. I mean, I didn't understand why or what was really going on, but it didn't, you know, it was just something to talk about. It wasn't something that traumatized me or anything.
I see. What about when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated? Do you recall that?
Yeah, I don't even remember exactly what year it happened. And I was talking to my grandmother about it, and again, you know, just something shocking that happened.
So you would have been in high school during much of the time that Martin Luther King was doing what he did.
Yes.
And did that have any effect on you when he was assassinated?
No, it just wasn't surprising to me, okay? I mean, you just seeing people get killed senselessly, when you try to stand up and do the right thing, and it just wasn't surprising.
How about Medgar Evers? Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah.
Do you recall when he was killed?
Yeah, well, yeah, the exact dates, no, I don't recall that, but yeah, I remember him getting killed.
Well, all of this happened in the 60s.
Right.
Did any of that have any effect on your views on civil rights, civil liberties, the rights of African Americans? Did it shape who you are?
No, I think I knew who I wanted to be, and I was going to get out there and be the best I could be, and I guess I never felt that the only person that could stop me from being who I wanted to be was me. I never felt that there were external forces slowing me down from what I wanted to do.
Now, do you believe that those beliefs came from you, your mother, your father, your neighborhood?
I think from my parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
They tried to instill in you a sense of self-worth. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and education was important in our household.
What about Carl Stokes? Did that, when he was elected mayor?
Yeah, my mom and grew up on the same street. They used to live on the same street, and she when he got elected, she became the assistant to the Secretary of Health Department at City Hall.
Okay, so this would have been while you were in high school, is that right?
Yeah.
And was your mother still being an activist in those days?
Well, she was still active in the community. I mean, but now she's part of the system, so.
She had to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Do you recall the Huff riots?
Yeah.
Where were you when the Huff riots occurred?
At a movie downtown. Because we had to walk all the way home from downtown because the buses weren't running.
I see.
Yeah.
Do you recall what year that would have been?
Was that 64?
Well, you were at a movie downtown.
Yeah, at the Hippodrome Theater.
At the Hippodrome Theater.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore, does it?
Correct.
Okay. And you had to walk home, why?
Because they shut down the buses because of the riot. The buses weren't running.
So you had to walk from downtown at the
All
Hip
the way home.
to 84th Street.
Yes.
Okay. Did you see any activity?
No, I know I didn't. I didn't know anything happened until I got home.
Okay.
Because we didn't come Huff way. We came down, ended up coming down Way Park. So, and I remember Mom, she had kind of worried about us, was exhaled, when we got home, 'cause, we were okay. And then that's when I found out what was going on.
As I recall, they had National Guard in Huff for a few
Yeah, well,
days.
that was a day or two later when the National Guards.
What happened? What's your recollection of what happened during the riots themselves?
Well, I heard that it started over a glass of water at this bar that was at 79th and Huff. It just escalated from there. But, ain't no riot gonna start over a glass of water, okay? So it was probably just tensions building up, and then things just finally exploded. I don't know if it was outside agitation that came in to get it started or what. Because riots were happening in other places like Watts, and this was just, I guess it was just symptoms to a problem.
And what was the problem that you saw, if you saw a problem?
The racial discrimination, people just wanting to be inclusive, it's like felt that it was society built that were excluding people, black people from being part of the nation. So, and you just can't. I don't see how a government can survive, if you're just going to keep excluding people.
Now, as a child growing up in the 60s, did you ever have any personal experiences of being excluded or discriminated against?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
What about in your the different schools that you attended?
No.
Where do you get most of your information from? The newspaper, television, internet?
All of them.
Your peers?
I listen.
Your military buddies?
I listen to them.
Okay. You are aware of the fact that you were the first named plaintiff in a case known as Craggett versus the Board of Education of the Cleveland City School District, are you not?
Yes.
And do you have any recollection of whether or not you had any direct involvement, or was that your parents doing?
That was my parents doing.
Okay, now that lawsuit would have been in the middle 60s, and you would have still been in either Addison or East High School. Does that sound pretty accurate?
Correct.
Did that case affect you in any appreciable way?
No, it didn't, because I really wasn't aware of it. I thought it sprang out because of the going to school for a half a day, where they called it relay classes. But I was past that. I went to relay class when I was at Way Park School the first time. But once they built Daniel E. Morgan, and I came back to Way Park and John Raper, school was full day for me.
Now, you were a part of the relay class system?
Yes.
Do you recall what grade you were in at the time?
Second grade.
Okay. And do you recall whether you went to school in the morning or the afternoon?
In the morning.
Okay. And do you recall how long you would have gone to school on a relay basis?
To noon.
Okay. So you would have started at what time?
Probably about 8:30.
Okay. So you would get to Wade Park at about 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go to school for a few hours until noontime.
Yes.
What would you do the rest of the day?
Play.
Okay. Did any of your brothers or sisters also participate in relay classes or the relay program?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Which ones? Your sister or your
My
brother?
sister and my brother.
Okay. There was some transportation that took place during those years also, where they would transport kids from Huff into Murray Hill. Were you ever a part of that?
No, I was never part of the bust. I was never bussed.
Okay. Now, as a child that was involved in the relay program, at the time, did you feel that was fair? Or did you think about it?
No, I did. I thought it was cool. I got the whole afternoon off, I didn't realize that, realized till later in life, that I was being cheated. Okay.
Cheated of what?
Out of time for my education.
When did you come to that realization?
Well, I'm talking about when I'm grown now, if that happened to my kids now, that I would be up there fighting to keep them in school all day.
Was your mother up there fighting to keep you in school all day?
Yeah.
Do you know if anything happened as a result of her fights?
No, as far as like going to jail or stuff.
No, anything
like
at all.
Just
any results that came of her attempts to.
Well, it must have worked, because, like I said, I started going to school all day. So, that was the desired results that they got.
Now, this happened, or it started when you were in the second grade?
Yes.
And do you think that was a form of discrimination?
I never gave it a thought about that. I just thought it was because the schools were wasn't enough schools. It was overcrowded, and they couldn't handle the capacity of students for a full day. now that I think about it, well, why, if your population is growing like this, why wouldn't you have enough schools? That would seem like the easy way out. Well, we'll just have them go a half a day, and then we don't have to worry about spending any money to build more schools.
Now, were there any alternatives, looking back, that you feel would have alleviated that problem without, using your words, cheating you out of a half a day of your education?
Sure, build more schools.
Okay. So if they had built more schools in anticipation of the population explosion, that would have solved the problem?
Possible.
Okay. Any other options that you were aware of, either then or now, for that matter?
No, well, I guess busing became an option. I'm sure they weren't busing people from a overcrowded school to another overcrowded school. It must have been space in that school if they were going to bus them to that school. So,
would that, in your opinion, have been a more viable option than having you go to school for half a day? Looking back.
You know what? I don't know. It depends on what you're doing with that half a day. You could.
What did you do?
I'm talking about like in schools. If you're getting an education, then it really should matter if you're there a half a day or a full day. If you're not doing anything while you're there, then that wouldn't be helpful either. So I think the quality of the education, or what you do with that time, is more important.
Well, do you feel now, looking back, that you benefited or you were a victim as a result of going to school a half day during that period?
No, I don't think I was a victim. Let's say I was a survivor. Okay. I learned life doesn't care about you. Life don't want to hear your excuses. Okay. So, you deal with what you got. If you can make a change, you try to make a change, try to make a positive change. But I'm not going to sit here and blame it on, where I am in life because I went to school for a half a day or not.
You said that if they had done this to your children, you would have taken issue with that.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I felt that they would have needed to be in school longer. And I would have looked at too, okay, are you getting the courses that you need to take? Because, being in school a whole day, you aren't getting educated the whole day. You might have study periods or gym or, what are you doing, with the courses that you need to take? Did you need to be there a whole day? I know I would put that in also.
I see. Now, your mother and your father, too, were both activists, and they were involved in that Craggett case that I spoke of earlier. Yeah. Do you think that you would have been inclined to take the same action they took to get you better education, or
for my children?
Would you be inclined to do that for your children?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think your mother had your best interest at heart when she took the action that she took?
I do.
Did you have any knowledge of what was going on?
No.
Back at the time?
No.
You were just a second grade child and doing what your mother and father told you to do, is that
correct?
Right? Okay. Neither your mother or father are with us today, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you have any familiarity, and I might have asked you this, with the Brown versus Board of Education case? I think you said that you were aware of it, but not at the time.
Was that school separate and equal? I think that was...
Well, the concept was schools that were separate and unequal.
Were unequal, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that was part of the argument for Cleveland Public Schools, that they were separate and unequal, which leads me to my next question. Do you have any familiarity at all with the Cleveland school desegregation case? It's known as Reed versus Rhodes.
No.
It was filed in 1973. Where were you in 1973?
I was stationed in the Philippines.
Okay. Did you, over the course of the next 20-some-odd years, hear about what was going on in the Cleveland Public Schools?
No, other than busing. That's pretty much all I heard.
And how did you gain that knowledge?
From talking to my mom.
Okay. And did your mother have any involvement with the Cleveland Public Schools during those years in the 70s and 80s at all?
You know what? I'm not even sure if she did or not. Or if she did, how actively she was in it.
Okay. Were you personally aware of any attempts to segregate students in the Cleveland Public Schools on the basis of race?
No.
Do you have any idea as to what the school desegregation case in Cleveland was all about?
To me, it was about getting whites and blacks together in a school. But I guess I had reservations about that. I mean, did you want to be, does the child want to be in that, maybe in that hostile atmosphere, trying to learn at the same time, being forced to do something? I guess my alternative was that if you lived in Cleveland, you should be able to go to school wherever you wanted to go to school. You shouldn't have been forced to go to school just to change the racial makeup of the school. If I wanted to go to school over on the west side, if I could get over there, then I should be allowed to go to that school. But if I didn't want to go to that school, I shouldn't have been told that, I have to go to this school.
So are you saying that you believe an open enrollment policy would be the preferable way of
Yes.
Operating the school system?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you ever have any conversations along these lines with your mother?
Yeah, that's what we just talked about.
Okay. And apparently your mother took issue with the relay classes that Cleveland School had, apparently,
Yes.
right? And apparently she took issue with the fact that you were a part of the relay program.
Right.
And you've indicated that if your children were part of a relay program, you would take issue with that as well.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll ask you the question again. Are you aware of any intentional acts by the Cleveland Board of Education or the superintendent to discriminate against African American children?
No, I mean, if it was done, it would have been done, I think, covertly. It wouldn't been openly done. Nobody's, I don't think, is stupid enough to just openly do it, especially in these times now.
No, I'm not speaking of these times. I'm speaking back in the 60s when you were in school.
You think things were kind of changing there, too. Maybe the 50s, maybe. But I don't think, the attitudes, you might have felt like you wanted to discriminate, but I just think it was done more covertly. I felt, this was a prosperous city, and that there shouldn't have been any reason to have relay classes, and I just assumed that the population explosion was just something that wasn't accounted for. Was it racial? I don't know. I mean, it affected the black community, and I'm not sure of what the population size of was in the white community, and I'm not aware of how their schools were filled. So, was it overcrowded? That I guess, I never heard of them doing relay classes. So, and I guess as I look back, now it's something I wondered, was it going on there too?
Well, it was only the black children that were forced to participate in the relay class program.
Okay.
Do you think that was discriminatory if only black children were involved in relay classes?
Maybe what we do about it, or not we, but what the school did about it, maybe that was, or didn't do to resolve that problem. Probably was race that went on with that.
So I assume, based on what you said, that relay classes were a problem.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Now, yeah. Like I said, when I was going through there, I didn't think it was a problem.
When you were in the second grade?
Yeah, I thought I was learning what I needed to learn in those 4 hours that I was at school.
And do you see it as a problem now, looking back with the wisdom of age?
Yeah, because it's something that didn't need to be. Okay.
There were other alternatives.
Or it could have been. Nobody came up, I mean, it's going to be like spending money. And nobody wants to spend money, especially in the black neighborhood. So I guess, you could say that race played a part there in what type of action or inaction that was taken.
When you say no one wants to spend money, especially in the black neighborhood,
Yeah.
were you speaking of the superintendent, the Board of Education? Who are you
Board of
referring to?
Education.
Okay. So your belief is that they did not want to spend money in the black neighborhood?
Right.
Okay. And what is that belief based on?
Just from the results, why don't we have these schools? Why are these schools overcrowded?
Well, you did refer to the fact that you went to Daniel E. Morgan and also John Raper, and that was intended to relieve some of the overcrowding.
So somebody did start spending money.
Okay.
They spent money then.
But in the meantime, you went to school for half a day. And I assume many of your classmates and some of your siblings also went to school for half a day. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you think that would, if only the black children went to half-day relay classes, do you think that was a racial factor?
Yeah.
I think I might have asked that question before.
Yeah.
Okay. You said you didn't have any personal knowledge of this Cleveland school desegregation case. This would have been after the Craggett case. And whatever knowledge you have, you were able to obtain that knowledge by talking to people, including your mother. Is that right?
Right.
And do you have any information relative to what occurred with the Cleveland school desegregation case? Let me back up a second. What was the objective of the desegregation of the Cleveland schools?
To change the racial makeup of the Cleveland public schools.
Do you think they succeeded in that?
I don't know, because I wasn't in it. You could send kids to, bus them to another school, but, you can still make them feel like they segregated at that school. You're in your group, we aren't buddy and pals and hanging out and everything together. When it come time, when that school bell rings and school's over, you get your butt back on the bus and get on back across town where you came from.
If in fact there was actual discrimination against black children occurring, what would have been the solution, in your opinion, to that discrimination?
don't have, through education, people have to change. You can't make a person change. This has to come from the inside. Sometimes, attitudes come from, this is what you grew up in your family. This is the way we thought. So attitude adjustments would have needed to take place.
Well, then the question becomes one of whether or not you believe the attempts to desegregate the Cleveland schools were worth the effort.
I guess somebody felt that we needed to do something, so I don't know how much thought they gave to this. Did they really think this through? That seemed easy. Let's put them on buses and send them and force them to be in classes together. But I don't think that it was treating a symptom. It wasn't treating a problem.
And what's the problem?
The problem is the way people think. You can put us all together, but, it doesn't mean that we are going to mesh together. We're going to melt together. Okay? That's got to come from each individual. And I guess if one or two, I guess it was worth the effort, but you had to try something. Okay?
Why?
Because again, I say I don't think we can survive if you're excluding. Everybody needs to be inclusive for a society to survive, to exist.
Well, you weren't personally involved with the Cleveland school desegregation effort because you were in the military while this was going on.
Yes.
And you got out of the military about the time Cleveland school desegregation was coming to an end.
Yeah.
Right. And your children went to school on the west side?
Yes.
When you were in high school, if you know, did they have very many African American students attending school on the west side?
Not that I know of. No.
So the schools that you were familiar with, primarily on the east side, were, for the most part, 90 to 100% African American.
Right.
Is that a reasonable statement?
Yeah.
And I might have asked you this already, but do you think it was worth the effort? In other words, the attempts to desegregate the Cleveland schools, do you think it was worthwhile?
Yeah, you try something. If it doesn't work, then you try something else. I think something needed to be done. I can't sit here and say exactly what needed to be done. I just think educating and trying to readjust attitudes about how people feel about each other, trying to break down stereotype barriers and things like that. It's the only way to make it together. You just can't put two people in the same room and just think that everything's going to be fine because they were in two separate rooms.
Now, that point of view, did you develop that point of view as a result of your experiences in the Cleveland schools, in the military, at Lutheran East? Where did that attitude evolve from?
Just the interacting with people, being in the military, I've been around different cultures all through my career. And you just, I guess through interaction, that's how I develop the way I feel.
So is it reasonable to say that your views are the result of your interaction with other individuals?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any reading, did that shape your view?
Yeah, that does too. When you start getting more information and process it, of things that might have went on that I wasn't familiar with, and didn't realize that was going on, that.
Well, when you were on relay classes, you weren't familiar with the fact that it was discriminating against black children, but you learned that later.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't have known that because I didn't know who else was. I thought everybody was on relay classes.
You found out later that wasn't accurate.
You're right.
Okay. Do you think we would have an African-American president today if it weren't for attempts to desegregate schools?
That might have been a step towards it.
Okay.
I mean, to me, it's not about black and white, and I just lost that focus years ago. To me, it's about the have and the have-nots. Economics, yeah. And I think the rich create this race-baiting world where, they're going to keep the lesser, the not rich whites against the not rich blacks, and just keep them separated.
Is this a recent development, or is
this is the way I see things. And,
okay.
And because of that, because people waking up and being aware of things, that's why I think we have a black president.
People becoming more aware of the realities. Why would I be discriminating against this person when my own kind is not, they're not concerned about me. I'm talking about a rich white versus a poor white, I mean, and I think from what I see, it's more bonding because they're putting more whites and blacks in the same boat. That's how people bond together. They have stuff in common. Well, that was much of the same defense that the Cleveland Board of Education and the superintendent argued. They contended it wasn't racial, it was economics. And you seem to be suggesting that it's more economics than it was racial.
I think they say it's economic, but is it you don't have the money or you don't want to spend the money? Okay, that's two different things.
Well, when you were on a relay program, that wasn't economics, was it?
I don't know.
Okay.
Ain't nobody let me see their books, so I can't say if it was or not. But, from what I see, I mean, the city was prosperous, so if they told me this today, I might believe that you don't have the money. But back then, I think you had the money. The industry was pretty big then, You had the steel mills and the car makers, and, life was good and kind of fat. But, do we want to spend this money in the black neighborhood? So, but again, I didn't, like I say, I thought everybody was on a half a day of school.
Well, you thought it at the time. Now you realize that's not accurate.
Yeah, that's not accurate.
Okay.
Right.
Other than Barack Obama, were there any beneficiaries of the desegregation effort?
Well, you started seeing more black people getting elected to political offices than, when I was a kid. I mean, they're starting to make inroads, and not just blacks, I'm talking about minorities, where these were exclusive clubs for pretty much whites only, white males. Now you see other women getting in places that they weren't when I was a kid, and like I say, other minorities, Latinos, Japanese, Chinese, you know.
So do you believe that this desegregation civil rights movement has opened doors for racial and ethnic minorities?
No, I think people's attitudes did that. I think people start thinking for themselves and where they are in life and how we can, you know, I guess improve our community. I mean, because change to me, it takes power to change, and we all have power, but for it to be the strongest power, everybody has to be together as one, and you can change anything.
Now, that point of view, do you think that any of your mother's activism rubbed off on you? Or do you think you developed that?
I do, because I guess I'm always for the underdog. And it just, you know, brings tears to my eyes when I see somebody step up to the plate. And when I mean step up to the plate, I mean when you got something to lose and you still, because you see something's wrong out there and you ready to put it on the line to make whatever's wrong right, you know. That's the type of person I am, and that's the type of person she was.
Okay. When did your mother die, if I might ask?
And
if you recall.
90, when did she pass? It's 96.
96?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been about, what, 2000? It's been a while now.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think there were any beneficiaries or victims of the desegregation effort in the Cleveland Public Schools? You can take it one at a time. Beneficiaries or victims?
I can't say either, you know. I think that would be better left to asking a person who was a product of the desegregation. And I can't say how a person felt or how they benefited or where they would be in life if it had or it hadn't happened.
So based on your experiences and your reading, you don't have an opinion one way or the other as to whether there were any victims or beneficiaries?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I guess, you know, a person has to look at the way their life turned out. Are they satisfied with their life? And they could tell you if they felt like they were a victim or if they benefited from it.
Okay. Mr. Craggett, I thank you very much.
Okay.
I don't have any further questions. Hold on one second. Why don't we turn off the... Mr. Craggett, I thank you for sharing with us your views on desegregation in general and the desegregation of the Cleveland Public Schools in particular. Is there anything else that you would want to add that I may not have touched upon that would, in your opinion, help us as we try to record this part of history?
No, I don't think so. I think I shared about all the knowledge I have of it and my personal opinions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let a little space go. Okay.
Hello, Mr. Craggett.
Hello.
As you know, my name is James Hardiman. I, along with other people, are in the process of co-authoring a book on the desegregation of the Cleveland Public Schools. You're aware of that, right?
Yes.
You are a graduate of the Cleveland Public Schools, are you not?
Yes.
And for the record, state your full name.
George Ernest Craggett.
Okay, we've had an opportunity to talk to your brother, Charles Craggett.
Yes.
And how old are you?
57.
You're 57?
Yes.
Should I call you George, Mr. Craggett?
George.
Okay, George. I'll call you George. Tell me about your education. What schools did you attend? Elementary, junior high school, and high school?
Wade Park, John W. Raper, Addison Junior High, and East High.
Okay. When did you graduate from John W. Raper, if you recall? That's not a fair question because I have to think. When did I graduate from elementary school? So don't worry about that. When did you graduate from Addison?
71,
It was 71.
Yeah.
And when did you graduate from East High School?
74.
Okay. Following your graduation from high school, did you attend any college? Did you go to the military? What did you do?
I went to the military,
Which branch?
United States Army.
You were in the Army during 74? Immediately after your graduation?
I think like 75. I went in 75.
Did you go to Vietnam?
No,
Okay, you were able to miss Vietnam.
too young for Vietnam, too old for anything else that's coming up.
Fair enough. Your mother is Daisy Craggett, right?
Yes.
And your father is Charles Craggett.
Yes.
Were you aware of any of the activities that they were involved in surrounding inequality in the Cleveland schools?
Yeah, from my mother.
Okay. And tell us about your mother. What did she do?
She was just a community activist out, just trying to, like my brother said, fight the injustices.
And where did you live when you were young?
84th and Wade Park, between Wade Park and Linwood.
So you were right up the street from East High?
Yes.
Okay. What type of activities did your mother get involved with?
Well, I know the night of the Huff riots, she was out on the streets, trying to calm down the crowds. And she just worked, worked with the YMCA, worked at, just doing community things. Anything that came up, she was a part of it.
Now, the schools you attended, John Raper, Addison, and East High, what was the racial compositions of each one of those schools?
100% black, except for the teachers.
I see. And you said you graduated from East High in 1974,
Yes,
and the schools were overwhelmingly black.
yes.
Would you consider that to be a segregated school?
No.
Why not?
Because I followed, I used to hang out with my mom a lot, and segregation mean that you were over here for a reason and you over here for a reason. It was just the makeup of the community. That's what my belief is.
So you distinguish between intentional segregation and segregation based on neighborhoods.
Right.
So if the neighborhood was segregated, were the schools
They
segregated?
should have been.
Were they segregated? In fact,
I can't only speak for my area.
exactly. You can speak of the Huff area because you
Yeah.
went to school in Huff.
Yeah.
Were the schools in Huff segregated
They were,
on the basis of race?
yes.
Okay. If they were 100% African American, that probably means they were segregated, right?
I just take segregation another way. I mean, because like I said, being around my mom, I read about segregation down south, and that's a whole different segregation than just a neighborhood segregation. It's just that people just live in that neighborhood, and that's where we attended school.
So you attended your neighborhood school,
Yeah,
okay, which happened to be, according to what you recall, 100% black.
yeah,
Elementary, junior high school, and high school.
yes,
And you do recall your mother's activism in the neighborhood when you were a young child.
yes.
Do you have any familiarity at all with the Craggett versus Cleveland school case?
Just something that I just didn't heard about.
It would have happened in 64. How old were you in 64?
7.
You were 7 years old.
I was just following the program every day.
Okay. Now, what type of things did you do as a child? What type of activities did you participate in?
Baseball, football, just neighborhood, what neighborhood kids did.
Okay. All right. Did you have any awareness of the civil rights movement when it occurred?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Okay. What's your recollection of the civil rights movement?
Just I don't know, just seeing the way blacks were treated down there, like Bloody Sunday and Bull Connors and the Jim Clarks and the lynchings and Meg Evers. Hearing my mother talk about Meg Evers, because I was like 7 years old when he got killed, but I definitely remember her talking about him, how he got shot, and just reading stuff, just reading books, just reading, watching movies,
Now, do you recall Kennedy's death?
Yes.
Okay. How old were you at the time? It happened in 63.
7, I was in the 2nd grade.
Okay. And apparently it You became aware of it at John W. Raper? Is that
Yes,
right? And do you recall when Martin Luther King was killed?
yes.
And do you recall how old you were at the time? Or what grade?
Martin Luther King, 68, I was 12 years old.
Okay, did that have any effect on you?
Scared me,
Why?
because I knew how person that he was and how blacks were, how would they react to what just happened.
Were you aware, I assume you are, where were you when the Huff riots occurred?
Coming home with my brother from the movie.
Coming home from where?
With the movie with my brother, I was a drag along with him. He took me, he took me with him.
Okay.
So we was coming home.
So you had to walk from downtown to 84th?
I don't remember the walk, but I remember looking up Huff and seeing all these police cars, the blue and red lights. I remember that.
Okay, after it happened, did it have any effect on your neighborhood? And by that I mean, what was going on in
Just
and
a
around
lot of
84th Street?
tension. Just tension. You talking about Martin Luther King?
No, I'm speaking of the Huff riots.
Oh, the Huff Riots. Just seeing the National Guard, that was amazing, seeing them riding around with their
Jeeps,
machine
with
guns. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of scary to see that in your own neighborhood. It's different when you see it on TV, but when it touch close to home like that, yeah, it scares you.
Now, how old were you when this was going on, the Huff riots?
I think that happened in '66. I had to be about 10 years old.
Okay. Did it have any effect on you? Other than being frightened? Seeing
No.
Okay.
I didn't know no better back then.
Okay. You were young
Yeah,
and impressionable, but it didn't have any direct
right.
effect as far as you can. How old were you when Carl B. Stokes got elected mayor of
That
Cleveland?
was 67, 11 years old.
Did that have any effect on you?
Oh, yeah, that was a beautiful night.
Okay. Kind of inspirational?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So, did you have any familiarity with the Glenville riots?
Yes.
Okay. How so? What happened?
I know Fred Ahmed Evans killed about 7 policemen and said he would have killed some more if his carbine hadn't got jammed up.
You
And
didn't
then
know?
I found out that some kind of way he was getting money from Stokes and buying these weapons, I heard. And I know it started over towing up a car. I think that's what it was.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah. I follow politics.
Do you have any familiarity with the Craggett versus Cleveland Board of Education case? Did I ask you that already?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Okay. What about the Cleveland school desegregation case? Because that was filed while you were still in high school.
That I don't have no recollection of.
Okay. After you graduated from high school, you said you went to the Army, right?
Yes.
How long did you stay in the Army?
I'd rather not answer that question. Seriously. It
Okay.
wasn't no 24 years.
Not like Big Brother.
No, I couldn't did that.
Okay. Did you become familiar at all with the attempts to, one, segregate the Cleveland schools, and thereafter desegregate the Cleveland schools?
No.
Okay. You said, or you told me that you were familiar with someone named Ralph McAllister.
He used to be the school board president.
And what do you know about Ralph McAllister?
I used to hear my mother and them talk about him. He just didn't care. He had that no-care attitude. Then later on, I guess he found God and became a judge and changed his whole status. But back then, it was like racial tension in the city then.
And how did that affect you?
It didn't affect me because I didn't really have no dealings with that. The only time it affected me, the week before he got killed, my mother took me to see Malcolm X.
The week before Malcolm X got killed?
Yeah, I forgot how I just said that. But the week before Malcolm X got killed, she took me to see him at Corey Church. And they came down with, this is the first time I ever seen, when they hang a person with the effigy, is that the right word I'm trying
Yes,
to use?
effigy.
And they came out with him, and I got real scared, and I told my mother, take me home. I'm scared, I don't like this. This don't look right. But then I just knew, then hearing her talk about it was just the tension back then. He was something else.
How old were you at the time?
Oh, Malcolm got killed in '65. That was 9 years old.
Okay. When did you become aware of the fact that there were some attempts to desegregate the Cleveland Public Schools?
I guess when they started busing.
Okay, this would have been after the lawsuit. This would have been about 78. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I was out of the school system, and I didn't have no kids in the school system.
Were you in the military in 78?
No.
Okay. Were you in Cleveland in 78?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you became aware when they started busing, right?
Yes.
Do you believe that that was an attempt to desegregate the Cleveland schools?
I guess change the racial picture, maybe how they wanted it to look from the outside looking in.
Do you think it was worth the effort?
No, I don't think so. You can get education whatever school you're going to if that's the education that you want and you're ready to pursue it.
So if you...
They didn't have to bus.
What would have been the alternative?
Just to build up the school systems in your neighborhood.
Now, your brother talked about attending relay classes. You heard that, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever attend relay classes?
Yes.
Which relay classes did you attend?
Kindergarten.
In the kindergarten, you went to school for half a day?
Yes.
And the rest of the day you were off?
Yes.
Okay. What about your older sister? Do you know if she attended relay classes?
No, because see, now you talking, my sister was born in 49. You talking about 7-year difference, so she was in another age group.
Okay.
So I don't remember. I just remember I went.
Okay. The school you went from, is that Raper, John Raper?
Well, when I was going to relay, I was at Wade Park.
Oh, at Wade Park, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wade Park, what was the racial composition of Wade Park? You said 100% black?
Well, being in the kindergarten, you really ain't gonna pay no attention to different cultures that's there, but I'm quite sure that back then the other side of Superior was white, so I don't know how many whites came from that side to come down to Wade Park, because they did have some Wincy School over there, and I know that was all Polish and white, because blacks couldn't even cross over Superior. But so I'm just saying some might have trickled down, but I couldn't say for sure how many.
But you participated in the relay program as a kindergartner.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
By the time you got to the first grade, they had eliminated the
Yeah, we
relay
was going
program.
all day.
You were going all day?
Yeah.
That would have been at Raper?
Yeah.
Okay. So you only went to kindergarten at Wade Park, but by the time you got to first grade, you went to...
I went to Raper.
Went to Raper. And you've already said what the racial composition of Raper was, 100% black?
Yeah.
Okay. Addison, you said was 100% black?
Oh, I'm cool. I know that was 100% black.
And East High was also 100%.
You might have had some trickle in there. Yeah, I could say about 99%. I would go with that number.
Okay. Now, do you believe, and I might have asked you this already, that the attempts at desegregation were worth the effort?
No.
Okay. Do you think we would have had an African-American president if we had not attempted to desegregate various institutions?
You talking about like the school system, desegregate? No, it was going to happen there. That was in God's plan. It won't happen with no desegregate. I'll say deregulation, but desegregate.
I know what you
That was
mean.
God's plan.
Okay.
It was going to happen anywhere, anyway.
What about the various African-American mayors that have been elected all across the country, starting, I guess, with Carl Stokes? Do you think that that was the result of the attempts at desegregating, not just the schools, but...
No, that was attempt. That was civil rights then.
Okay.
It wasn't had nothing to do with no schools.
And you don't think the attempts to desegregate schools is all a part of the civil rights movement?
Part of it, yes.
Okay.
That started from the South.
Okay. Well, I agree that the civil rights movement did start in the South. Do you believe we had any racial problems here in the city of Cleveland?
Yes.
Like what?
Like I said, blacks couldn't cross Superior without getting chased home or just getting chased home or beat up.
So Superior was something of
was the borderline. You did not cross over. When you heard streets like Pulaski, Sawinski, Kosciuszko, Polish name, blacks didn't go over there. If we went in groups and we walked fast.
Did you ever personally become involved in any fights or altercations as a result of crossing that racial line, which was Superior Avenue?
They tried to jump us one time.
Okay.
White guy standing he was standing in a storefront, and we was just going to get some money to go to wrestling that night. He said, "Assalamu alaikum." I said, "Alaikum salam." And boy, when I said that, it just came all, his old crew just chased us. But we got away, though. Luckily, we got away. But then you hear stories that some didn't get away. They found them over in the creek, beat up. That just wasn't a good place to be.
So what you're describing are racial tensions that existed in the city of Cleveland during, I assume, the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to say more in the 60s.
So you said Superior was a racial line, a border,
Yeah.
is your word. Did any of the children that lived north of Superior end up at East High School while you were there?
It could have been a trickle down. It could have been some.
But the vast majority of the white people in that area lived north of Superior, and the vast majority of the black people in that area lived south of Superior.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're saying that other than a few people that were Caucasian actually went to East High while you were there,
Right.
even though East High was their neighborhood school.
But back when I started going East High, the whites said, you know, because you bring one or two blacks and families in, and whites, they'll just start, you know, leaving. The old folks die off, and the younger siblings don't want to stay, so they move.
So the neighborhood was changing.
Yes.
Okay. And what you've described in popular culture is oftentimes referred to as white flight.
Yes.
Did you actually witness white flight?
Well, you know, like I said, hanging out with my brother, I knew a lot of whites was over there. I didn't actually see it, but then when I grew up, and then I saw how blacks could cross over Superior and was no trouble, and a lot of black families over there, then I figured that was, you know, white flight.
Do you have any opinions as to what the solution would have been in the nature of the schools that you attended? Raper, Wade Park, Addison, and East High. What would you suggest would have been the solution? If there is one.
Well, one part could be just build up the neighborhoods. I would think, you know, just build up because the whites leaving for a reason. They're not just leaving, you know, it's just a reason, you know, that's my belief.
And what's the reason?
Either blacks moving into their neighborhood.
So when blacks move in, whites move out?
They might start, it's according to how the black family comes into the neighborhood too.
Okay. Well, do you have any suggestions or any solutions looking back as to what could have and maybe should have been done?
Just build up the neighborhoods and try to bring the people together. But everybody just wanted to do their own thing. The blacks want to do theirs, the whites want to do theirs. You know, it should have been somebody to just try to bring it all together.
Was your mother active in that attempt of trying to bring all the people together?
In some ways, I can't actually say which way she did it, but, you know, she was just out there. She was just a fighter.
Okay. How about your father?
He was the family man. My mother was the soldier. She was the soldier.
I've heard that.
Yeah, my father was just a family, you know, worked at the post office and just was home, and she was out there. She was the one going to the meetings and, you know, fighting for, like I said, she was just out there.
Do you believe the goals of desegregation were ever realized? Well, maybe I should ask another question. What do you think the goals of desegregation were? And you may have answered that already.
None. Wasn't no goals. I mean, if it was a goal, they didn't reach it, I don't believe.
Okay. You did say that one of the objectives was to bring people together. I think that's what you said. Do you think that was ever realized?
In later years. I mean, maybe just in later years.
What years would that have been?
Oh, I'm talking about maybe when I was in my 20s. I would take a wild guess like that.
Okay. Do you think there were any victims or beneficiaries of the school desegregation effort in Cleveland? Let's take victims first. Do you think there were any victims of that effort?
I can't say.
Do you think anybody benefited from the school desegregation effort?
No. I can't say that neither. I can't say.
Okay. Do you think we are more of an inclusive country today than we were back in the 60s?
We ain't gonna never be. We will never ever be.
And why do you say that?
Because people are individuals. People gonna think on their own minds.
Do you think we are more or less segregated today than we were back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s?
Say that, can you
Are
answer?
we more or less segregated today?
Oh, less.
We're less segregated?
Yes.
And what do you base that on?
But people can just meld in with each other. I mean, you know, the work fields, it's just the class now that people just can work together now. And they have to.
Are you suggesting that the neighborhoods are more desegregated today than they were before? Because when you were growing up, they had very few black people living in, say, Shaker Heights or Cleveland Heights. But now, both Shaker and Cleveland Heights have a significant black population. Is that what you're referring to?
You gotta run that one by me again. I'm sorry.
When you were growing up,
Okay.
some of our suburbs were
All white.
overwhelmingly white.
Yes.
And that may not be the situation today. Correct?
Okay.
Do you think that is an indication that we've made progress?
Little progress.
Okay. When you were in school, many schools were all white or all black.
Yes.
And some of the schools are now more desegregated than they were then. I don't mean Cleveland schools. I mean some of the suburban schools. They have black children at Shaker Heights. They have black children at Cleveland Heights. They have black children in many of the West Side suburban schools. Do you think that this is better or worse?
It could be better if more blacks could get to the outside, to the suburban schools. You know, they'll just bring us in there because we can run fast or jump higher. You know, bring them in there on educational.
Well, we haven't succeeded in bringing very many non-African American schools into the Cleveland system, have we? In other words, well, East High doesn't exist anymore, but the vast majority of schools in the city of Cleveland are one race or the other. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So do you think we have realized or failed to realize the goals of desegregation in Cleveland?
Failed.
Thanks. Okay. Is there anything else you want to share with me, Mr. Craggett?
No, I just had to share my views after what my brother said. And, you know,
Do you agree with your brother?
to a sort. I mean, that's my brother. we bump heads on everything.
Well, that's normally the case with brothers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the devil's advocate, and he his way, and I'm my way. If he say it's blue, I'm gonna say it's another kind of blue.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, anything I didn't ask that you want to share with me?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.